Welcome to Vendetta Sports Media. My name is James Herrick, and today I am doing a film study on UFC middleweight Alex Pereira. Pereira is challenging for the UFC middleweight belt this weekend in a trilogy fight against Israel Adesanya. Now, the first two of those fights did not take place in MMA. They took place in kickboxing. However, those skills from kickboxing have transferred for Pereira over to MMA, and he is a very, very good striker. So this film study should be interesting, and we're going to focus a lot on his striking. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to look at some small details that I found in film that really help Pereira be successful, and we're going to look at some negatives as well. So we're going to look at two strengths and two weaknesses, and when we're done with that, we are going to discuss some ways that fighters can potentially beat Alex Pereira, but we are also going to look at what he can do to be successful in each of his fights. The first strength from Alex Pereira that we are going to discuss is his ability to make reads. Pereira is a very, very smart fighter. So when his opponents are doing something repeatedly, he's really able to quickly figure that out, and he's able to counter those actions with big knockout strikes that he times perfectly. So to start with this, we're going to look at an example from his fight with Sean Strickland. In this fight, we see Strickland pick up this lead leg repeatedly so he can feint his teeps and block kicks. Now watch Strickland's legs. Boom, picks up leg. There he does it again a little bit. There he does it a third time, and then he throws that kick. Strickland is also trying to parry that jab of Pereira, so you see him reach out a lot to touch the lead hand of Pereira. So watch Strickland's right hand in this clip. There he goes, one. Here's a second, and there's a third touch of hands right there. Now, Pereira has made the read on this. He knows what's going on. So, when Strickland reaches out to parry that jab hand isn't there. Instead, that jab hand is throwing a hook that knocks Strickland out. Look at Strickland before that punch lands. His knee's up, can't really move either direction. He's got the hand out, so nothing's covering his face. This is a great read by Pereira, and he gets the knockout because of it. Before we move on from Alex Pereira's first strength, we're also going to look at a couple clips from his fight with Andreas Michailidis, because this is another really good example of a time where he really picked up on a trend and capitalized on that trend by making some really good reads. One thing that Michailidis does a lot of in this fight is that when Pereira throws a jab or a straight, he'll try and go underneath it with a takedown attempt. Here's a good example of Pereira extending with a jab and Michailidis going underneath it. In this one, Pereira comes with a long straight and Michailidis goes underneath it, this time into a clinch position. Pereira made a read on this as well. Pereira knows that Michailidis is trying to get to the clinch or get this to the ground. So what he does is he keeps his lower body very similar to when he's throwing his straight punches. But during that motion, he turns it into a flying knee, and he catches Michailidis leaning in as if he were entering the clinch, and it's perfect as he ducks right into the flying knee that he threw. The second strength that we are going to look at from Alex Pereira is his ability to move circularly, specifically the way he moves to his left. Pereira does a really good job of circling out to his left. I don't think this is his only way that he moves. I'm not telling you that Pereira only goes to his left, because that's really not true, but I do think he's very effective when he is circling to his left. First, anytime you're circling or moving side to side, it makes it harder for your opponent to land straight shots like jabs, teeps, straight punches, anything of that nature makes it harder to land. But more importantly, this helps him keep his back off the fence. He's very good at circling away and getting out back to the center, and I'll show you some clips of that. And the last thing it does that really helps him is he's able to pull guys in to shots. So what that means is as he moves to his left, his opponents also have to follow him and move in that same direction. When that is happening, he can throw strikes from the left side, and they land with more power, and they're easier to land. Usually, this is kicks, specifically his body kick, and then he'll mix it up every once in a while and throw head kicks. But he will also throw some hooks in there as well, which are really good, but he just doesn't throw them as frequently when he's circling. Usually it's the kicks. So we're going to look at a couple of examples, once again, from his fight with Sean Strickland to illustrate that. To illustrate what I mean by circling to the left, just watch how Pereira moves. He stops at times to throw some punches, but for the most part, if he's not throwing, he's just slowly moving and circling to his left. One of the things this does is it makes it easier for Pereira to land his lead body kick and his lead head kick. So what happens is guys end up chasing him and they have to follow his movement. So this means they're walking straight into attacks that come from the left side, those kicks. Now, this makes it much easier for Pereira to land those kicks, and it makes them land with more force. And this is all because of how he moves to his left. Another benefit of this is that he can get his back off the fence very quickly. You don't want your back on the fence, and Pereira is able to circle to his left very quickly and efficiently and get back to the center of the octagon. So now switching over to weaknesses in Alex Pereira's game, the first thing that I noticed was his takedown defense. And this is very natural, right? He's a kickboxer making his way over to MMA, so I don't expect him to have lights out takedown defense. But I thought it would be further progressed than it was. And at the moment, it appears to me that he's really just using his physical strength to try and defend takedowns. I don't see him doing much technically other than throwing up submission attempts. And like I said, I don't expect him to be miles and miles ahead of other guys in terms of takedown defense because he's a kickboxer transitioning to MMA and he doesn't have much experience. However, I think he doesn't have much technical ability right now in that regard, and he also doesn't have great tendencies in terms of how often he wants to throw up submission attempts. So we're going to look at some clips there of him getting taken down and how he doesn't really do much to defend against those takedowns. So in this first clip, Bruno Silva does a good job of getting on the legs of Pereira, but I don't think he really does much defensively to prevent this takedown. It looks like he's got a guillotine attempt there, but he's not really doing much with it, and he never actually puts Bruno Silva in any danger, and he just ends up on his butt. Another aspect of this is that you can see Pereira doesn't really have a good recognition of this takedown. I think he thinks the overhand is coming, so he's putting the hands out to defend, but this creates a wide window for Bruno Silva to get on the legs, which is where everything bad started. Now we've got a clip from Andreas Michailidis, where Michailidis is also able to take him down. In this clip, Pereira does put up a little bit better of a fight, and it's not quite as easy of a takedown to get. But when watching this clip, I want you to know that Andreas Michailidis won one fight in the UFC and has since been cut. And he's not nearly as big as Pereira. So just keep in mind that this guy that's taking him down isn't really that great of a fighter, and Pereira doesn't do much outside of imposing physical strength to prevent this takedown. The issue in this clip is that once Pereira gives up this strong position where Michailidis has his hands locked under the butt, Pereira doesn't really do much to defend this takedown. We see him pressure forward with the hips using his physical strength, which is good, but his hands aren't doing anything. We see one hand block the knee while the other hand fishes for a guillotine. Once again, there's no reason to be fishing for a guillotine here. He's not going to get it. He doesn't get it. He needs to be defending the takedown. The second weakness in Pereira's game was something that really surprised me because I didn't expect it going in. But sometimes he gets in trouble with the way that he throws his leg kicks. And I'm not saying he has bad leg kicks. That's not what I'm trying to tell you at all, because that would not be true. However, sometimes he can get a little bit lazy, it appears, with these leg kicks. It might be laziness, it might be bad habit. I'm not sure what exactly it is that's causing him to do this, but he will go from throwing very hard and very effective leg kicks to then he will throw out like a leg kick that's, 50% of his max output, right? It'll be slower, it won't land as hard. I don't know why he's doing this, but he does it on occasion, and I'm not really a fan of it because it can result in you getting countered, right? If you're just throwing a slow kick out there without much meaning, you can be countered very easily. This is something that Bruno Silva did very effectively, and Sean Strickland did it once he got off a good jab while Pereira was throwing a leg kick. Like I said, Pereira has good leg kicks, but at times he just gets a little lazy with them, or he's not putting full output in them, and his opponents are able to capitalize at that opportunity. So we are going to look at a couple examples of that. The best example of this came in this sequence. If you watch the first two kicks, they're quick and they're fast. However, the third one he throws, which is the lead leg kick, is a little bit slower and his hands aren't in a good defensive position, so Bruno Silva fires back and catches him cleanly with the first shot he throws. Alright, so this leg kick is faster than the one that I showed in the last clip, but it's still slower than some of the other ones that he's thrown. Now, this time, once again, his hands are off to the side, and that creates a lane for Strickland to come with that jab, and he connects with it. Now, when I'm trying to devise a game plan for how Alex Pereira can win fights, the recipe on the surface is very, very simple. The more striking, the better, right? You obviously don't want to get taken down when you're an elite kickboxer, so that's not breaking news. But the more striking is obviously beneficial to Pereira because he's so good at making these reads. The longer the fight is standing and the longer he's able to trade with you, the quicker and easier it is for him to make reads on what his opponent is doing. So that is something that he should keep in mind and continue to do, which is something that I think he probably will do for the rest of his career because he is such an elite level striker. Now, in terms of specific weapons that I like from him, I like when he throws out his jab when he's not being super offensive. There's times where he'll throw big combinations that are really powerful, and that's great. But in those moments where he's not doing that, I like it when he's throwing that jab out there and he's keeping his opponent off of him. That's something I really like, and that's something I think he should do, and I think he will continue to do that. Now, I also like those kicks. He throws powerful, powerful, powerful kicks. Like I said earlier, don't throw the lazy 50% leg kick, that's bad. But when he's throwing kicks in multiples, when he's going leg kick, body kick, head kick, back to leg, very, very hard to defend against because you're getting blasted with powerful strikes from a lot of different angles. And it makes the opponent think a lot. So that's something, once again, I think he should continue to do. A couple other small things that I noticed that I really like is when he's defending strikes, he doesn't really rely on a high guard. He did in kickboxing, and I've heard some people say that, but in MMA, he's relied a lot on head movement, and he will stick his arm out and do this with his shoulder, and it creates kind of a guard for his chin, and he rolls with a lot of shots, and he moves his shoulders and upper body and head very well to avoid strikes. That's something I really like, and I think that's a very good transition into MMA because you don't have the big gloves like you do in kickboxing. So that was something I was surprised about that I saw that I think really translates well from the kickboxing ring. Now, lastly, when you don't have those big gloves on, you can't really put up that high guard. But in MMA, we continue to see guys put up a high guard. And what I mean by high guard is when a guy does this, right? He's got the two hands in front of his face just so he doesn't get hit with straight shots. When a guy does that against Alex Pereira, he just throws hooks, right? He just goes around that high guard, hits you in the ear, hits you in the side of the head, hits you in the temple with his powerful, powerful hooks. Continue doing that. I think I've covered all the bases for the things that I like. There's a lot I like on the feet. So it's basically, in terms of striking, it's just defend takedowns and continue doing what he does well, and he will be successful in 99% of scenarios as long as the fight is standing. If there's one guy out there who can give him trouble on the feet, it's Israel Adesanya. So UFC 281 should be interesting. Now, when you're looking at a game plan to beat Alex Pereira, it's not that easy, especially if you want to focus on the striking. However, I think there are some things that you can do. One thing that I noticed was that he moves very well, right? He moves very well with his lower body. He's very quick. He moves his head well. He moves his shoulders well. But when he begins to get tired, he doesn't move those areas as well. So I think if you can apply pressure and outpace him, I think that is beneficial. Now, one note of that is he's still very powerful and he's still very quick with his hands, but I think the body is what begins to slow down outside of that. I think you can get him tired a little bit by investing in the body, especially early, because he is fairly hard to hit with a lot of powerful strikes early because he's so good with that movement. So I think investing in the body early is a beneficial strategy. And then you really want to catch him when he's moving circularly, right? We talked a lot about the circular movement and how it pulls his opponent in two strikes. At the same time, he's moving in that same direction. So if you can cut him off a little bit and be first with some of those kicks, you can catch him walking into your strikes coming from it'd be your right side if he's circling to his left. So I think that would be beneficial as well. It's not going to be easy, but I do think it would be beneficial. Lastly, you have to be on point defensively. This guy throws heavy hands, and if you give him an opportunity to land a powerful strike, he's going to take it and he's going to be successful. So you have to be lights out in your defense. And if you're not, you're going to get knocked out. Now let's switch over to the grappling and how you can beat him in the grappling realm. I imagine that you think I'm going to say, just take him down, just take him down. I don't think it's that simple. Because he is so strong, he makes you work a lot. If you are not as physically strong as Alex Pereira, or at least close to him in physical strength, he can outmuscle you in some of these scenarios where he doesn't have the technique to make up for it. He'll just straight up outmuscle you, and that can make you put in a lot of work as you're trying to outgrapple someone who's so physically strong. So if you're not very strong, I wouldn't advise grappling. Obviously, that can change a little bit if you are an elite level grappler. If you are some BJJ black belt, or if you are some NCAA champion, then obviously, even if he's physically stronger than you, you'll still be able to find success in the grappling. But for the most part, I think you either need to be physically stronger than him, or you need to be a very high level, elite level grappler. Now, some examples to illustrate what I'm saying. If you look at someone like Israel Adesanya, I wouldn't advise him to take Pereira down because he's not physically strong, and Pereira could outmuscle him in a lot of grappling scenarios, even though Adesanya is probably textbook the better grappler. He's probably got better BJJ, and he's probably a little bit better of a wrestler, but Pereira is so much physically stronger that it'd be hard for Izzy to take him down, in my opinion. Now, if you contrast that with someone like Robert Whittaker, good offensive takedowns and very strong. I imagine he could get Pereira to the ground. Look at someone like Marvin Vettori. Good in the clinch, and he has really good takedowns. And he's, once again, strong. I imagine he could get Pereira to the ground. Someone like Cannonier, very physically strong. I imagine he could be able to get Pereira to the ground without tiring himself out a lot. So I think there's some examples to kind of illustrate my thought process and what I mean by you either have to be physically strong or a very, very good grappler. Thank you so much for watching this film study on Alex Pereira. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, you should probably go watch the film study that I did a couple of months ago on his opponent, Israel Adesanya. Naturally, those two are fighting, so you should probably get some information on both of them. Regardless, even if you don't, you should go check out our website, vendettasportsmedia.com. Lots of great sports articles there. Everything you're looking for there. Just about every sport you can think of is on the website, so go check it out. But regardless, thank you so much for joining me and watching this film study on Alex Pereira. Goodbye.